Lami, the young girl who was banished because of what she did with an outcast giant. Welcome back. As you enjoy the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and also share with your friends. Now back to the story. The moonlight cast long shadows over the reed huts, their thatched roofs trembling in the sudden wind. Women clutched their beaded necklaces. Men gripped their carved walking sticks, and children hid behind their mothers' woven skirts. The song was not just beautiful, it was wrong. It was the song of spirits, the one the elders had banned long ago, said to call misfortune to anyone who dared sing it. And Lami, barely 16, stood at the edge of the village, her dark eyes wide with fear, her bare feet planted in the red earth, singing with a voice that wasn't hers alone. Behind her, in the darkness, loomed a shadow taller than any man. A shadow the village knew as Zuberi, the outcast giant, cursed and shunned. Lami's heart pounded as the elders stormed toward her, their faces hard as the stones that lined the cattle kraal. Her wrapper, a simple cloth dyed with ochre and tied at her shoulder, was streaked with dust from the hills. She stopped singing, her throat dry, but the melody lingered in the air like a ghost. The head elder, Baba Mthunzi, his gray braids adorned with cowrie shells, pointed a trembling finger at her. Lami, daughter of Thandi, what have you done? His voice was low, but it carried the weight of judgment. The crowd murmured, their whispers sharp like thorns. She's with the giant, one woman hissed. She's brought the curse back, said another. Lami wanted to explain, to tell them it wasn't what they thought, but her words stuck like millet porridge in her throat. She glanced back at the hills, where Zuberi's shadow had already melted into the night. He was gone, as he always was when the village came too close, but she could still feel the warmth of his deep voice, teaching her the song that made her feel alive again, the song that reminded her of her father, gone now for 2 harvests. The song she wasn't supposed to know. It had started 3 moons ago, when Lami's grief for her father became too heavy to carry. Her father, Saifo, had been the village's best singer, his voice so strong it could calm a storm, or so the elders said. When he fell ill and died, the village lost its music, and Lami lost her heart. She stopped singing at the harvest dances, stopped joining the girls who wove reeds into baskets by the river. Her mother, Thandi, tried to comfort her, braiding her hair with gentle hands and telling stories of ancestors, but nothing filled the hole Saifo left behind. One night, unable to sleep, Lami had wandered to the hills beyond the village, where the grass grew tall and the air felt heavy with secrets. The elders warned that spirits lived there, and worse, the giant Zuberi, who had been banished before Lami was born. They said he was taller than 2 men, with eyes like burning coals and a heart cursed by the ancestors for bringing drought to the land. No one spoke his name without spitting to ward off evil. But Lami wasn't afraid. She was too empty to fear anything. That's when she heard it. A low, rumbling song, like the earth itself was humming. She followed the sound through the grass until she found him. Zuberi was no monster. He was big, yes, his shoulders wide as a buffalo's, his skin dark as the night sky, but his eyes were soft, like a cow's, and his hands were gentle as he carved a wooden flute. He looked at Lami, unsurprised, as if he'd been waiting for her. "You're Saifo's girl," he said, his voice deep but kind. "You carry his song in you." Lami should have run, but she didn't. Instead, she sat on a rock and listened as Zuberi sang. It was the forbidden song, the one the elders said brought curses. But to Lami, it felt like her father's voice calling her home. Zuberi told her the song was older than the village, taught by the ancestors to call rain, not ruin. He said the elders banned it because they feared its power, feared him after the drought came and they needed someone to blame. Lami didn't believe him at first, but she kept coming back, night after night, learning the song, letting it fill the empty space inside her. Now, standing before the elders, she wished she'd never gone to the hills. Baba Mthunzi stepped closer, his beaded staff glinting in the moonlight. "You've betrayed us, Lami," he said. "You've sung with the cursed one. Do you know what you've done?" Lami shook her head, tears stinging her eyes. "I just wanted to feel him again," she whispered. My father. The crowd gasped, and Thandi, standing at the edge, covered her face with her hands. The elders didn't care about her reasons. They called a council at dawn, and Lami was made to stand in the center of the village, her wrists bound with raffia cord. The air was thick with the smell of burning herbs, a ritual to cleanse the village of her actions. Baba Mthunzi spoke of the drought that came when Zuberi lived among them, how the crops withered and the river shrank. They believed the giant's curse lingered, and Lami had awakened it with her song. You've brought danger to us all, he said. You must leave this place. Lami's mother begged, her voice breaking, but the elders were firm. Banishment was the only way to protect the village. As the sun rose, painting the sky red, Lami was led to the edge of the village. Her mother pressed a small beaded bracelet into her hand, tears streaming down her face. Find your way back, my child, she whispered. Lami nodded, but her heart felt like a stone. She looked toward the hills, where Zuberi hid, and wondered if he knew what she'd done for him, for the song. The villagers turned away as she walked into the tall grass, her bare feet sinking into the earth. The forbidden song echoed in her mind, but now it felt like a chain, not a gift. She didn't know where she would go, only that the hills were her only refuge. The air grew cooler as she climbed, the village shrinking behind her. She heard the distant lowing of cattle, the last sound of home, and then silence. In the hills, she found Zuberi waiting, his massive form crouched by a small fire. His flute lay beside him, untouched. You shouldn't have come back, he said, his voice heavy. They'll never forgive you now. Lami wiped her tears, her voice shaking. Why didn't you tell me it would cost me everything? Zuberi looked away, his eyes on the flames. I thought you needed it as much as I did. Lami sat beside him, the bracelet tight in her fist. She didn't know if she could trust him, but she had nowhere else to go. The hills were alive with sounds. Crickets, rustling leaves, and something deeper, like the earth breathing. She felt the song inside her, begging to be sung, but she pressed her lips together. The village was wrong about Zuberi, she was sure. But what if they were right about the song? What if it really brought misfortune? As the fire crackled, a new sound broke the night. A low rumble, not from the song, but from the sky. Lami looked up, her heart racing. No rain had fallen in months, and the crops were failing. The village was already whispering of hunger. If the drought worsened, they'd blame her and Zuberi even more. She turned to him, her voice sharp. Is this the curse they talk about? Did we do this? Zuberi shook his head, his face unreadable. The song doesn't curse. It calls. But they won't listen. He stood, his shadow stretching across the rocks. Stay here, Lami. I'll find a way to fix this. He disappeared into the darkness, leaving her alone with the fire and the weight of her banishment. Lami clutched her mother's bracelet, her mind spinning. The village hated her. Her mother was alone, and the giant she trusted might be hiding something. The rumble in the sky grew louder, and she wondered if the spirits were angry, or if something else was coming, something bigger than a song. Lami sat by the dying fire, her mother's beaded bracelet cold in her hand. The hills around her were dark, the tall grass whispering secrets she couldn't understand. The rumble in the sky had faded, but the air felt heavy, like a storm was waiting to break. Her ochre-dyed wrapper clung to her skin, damp with night dew, and her bare feet ached from the climb. Zuberi was gone, vanished into the shadows after telling her to stay. She didn't know if he was coming back or if she could trust him. The village had cast her out, calling her a traitor for singing the forbidden song with the giant they feared. Now, alone in the hills, Lami felt the weight of her choice like a stone on her chest. She stood, brushing dirt from her wrapper, and looked toward the village below. The reed huts were faint specks in the moonlight, their fires glowing like tiny stars. She thought of her mother, Thandi, alone in their hut, her hands trembling as she wove baskets to sell at the market. Lami wanted to run back, to beg forgiveness, but the elder's words echoed in her mind. You've brought danger to us all. She clutched the bracelet tighter, its cowrie shells digging into her palm. She wasn't sure if she was more angry or afraid. Angry at the village for not listening, afraid that they might be right about the song. The hills were alive with sounds. Crickets chirping, leaves rustling, and something heavier, like footsteps in the distance. Lami froze, her heart racing. Was it Zuberi, or something worse? The elders always said the hills were home to spirits, angry ones who punished those who broke tradition. She remembered her father, Sifo, telling her stories by the fire, his voice soft as he spoke of ancestors who watched over the village. They guide us, he'd said, but they don't forgive easily. Lami wondered if the ancestors were watching her now, judging her for singing with the giant. She moved toward a cluster of rocks, seeking shelter. The air smelled of damp earth and wild herbs, the kind her mother used to make healing teas. Lami's stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since the morning before, when Thandi had given her a handful of roasted maize. She knelt by the rocks, searching for anything to eat, but found only dry leaves. Her fingers brushed something smooth and hard, half buried in the dirt. She dug it out. A small, carved stone, shaped like a bird with eyes made of polished shells. It was old, older than anything in the village, and it felt warm in her hand, like it held a heartbeat. Lami's breath caught. She'd seen carvings like this before, in the elder's hut, where sacred relics were kept for rituals. This one was different, though. It had a mark on its wing, a spiral that matched the rhythm of the forbidden song. She hummed a few notes, soft and careful, and the stone seemed to hum back, a faint vibration in her palm. She stopped, her skin prickling. Was this why the song was banned? Did it wake things the village wasn't ready for? A twig snapped behind her, and Lami spun around, hiding the stone behind her back. Zuberi stepped into the moonlight, his massive frame filling the space between two trees. His hide vest was patched with leaves, and his arms were scratched from thorns. He carried a bundle of roots and a gourd of water, which he set beside her. "You're still here," he said, his voice low, almost surprised. Lami nodded, unsure what to say. She wanted to ask about the stone, about the song, but his eyes were heavy, like he carried a secret too big to share. "Why did you leave me?" she asked instead, her voice sharp. "You said you'd fix this, but I'm banished because of you." Zuberi sat on a rock, his hands resting on his knees. "I didn't mean for this," he said. "I thought the song would help you, like it helped me." He looked toward the village, his face tight. "They blamed me for the drought, Lami. They said I angered the ancestors. But I was just a boy, bigger than most, trying to help." Lami frowned, clutching the stone tighter. "What do you mean, help?" Zuberi sighed, his breath like a gust of wind. He told her his story, his words slow and careful. Years ago, when he was young, the village had plenty. Full rivers, green fields, fat cattle. Zuberi, even then taller than any man, was loved for his strength. He carried water, built huts, and sang at festivals. But when the rain stopped, the elders needed someone to blame. They turned on Zuberi, saying his size was unnatural, a curse. They claimed he'd sung the forbidden song, calling spirits that stole the rain. He was banished to the hills, left to survive alone. "I didn't sing it then," Zuberi said, his eyes on the ground. "But I found it later, carved on a rock like the one you're hiding." Lami's heart skipped. She hadn't shown him the stone, but he knew. She pulled it out, holding it up in the moonlight. "What is it?" she asked. Zuberi's face softened, but there was fear in his eyes. "It's a rain caller," he said. "The song and the stone together, they talk to the sky. But the elders think it's a curse because they don't understand it." Lami stared at the stone, her mind racing. The village was suffering now, the crops wilting, the river low. If the song could bring rain, why was it forbidden? She thought of her father, how he'd taught her to sing with courage, to trust her heart. "Why didn't you tell them?" she asked. "Why didn't you prove it?" Zuberi shook his head. "They stopped listening, and now they won't listen to you." The words stung, but Lami knew he was right. The village saw her as a traitor, not a savior. She tucked the stone into her wrapper, her hands shaking. I need to go back, she said. My mother needs me. The village needs rain. Zubri stood, towering over her. It's not safe yet, he said. They'll hurt you. But Lami was stubborn, like her father. I'm not staying here forever, she said. Show me how to use the stone. Before Zubri could answer, a shout echoed from the hills below. Lami's blood ran cold. It was a man's voice, angry, followed by others. The village had sent hunters. Men with spears and torches, their shadows dancing in the grass. They were coming for her or for Zubri or both. Lami grabbed the gourd and roots, her heart pounding. We have to hide, she whispered. Zubri nodded, pointing to a narrow path leading deeper into the hills. Follow me, he said, his voice urgent. They ran, the grass slicing at Lami's legs, the stone heavy in her wrapper. The path led to a cave, its mouth hidden by vines. Inside, it was cool and dark, the air thick with the smell of moss. Zubri lit a small fire, his hands steady despite the shouts growing closer. Lami crouched beside him, her breath shallow. What do they want? She asked. Zubri's face was grim. They think we're cursing them. The drought's worse. They're scared. Lami thought of her mother, of the village's hungry children. She remembered the elders burning herbs to cleanse her evil. Guilt twisted in her stomach. She'd only wanted to feel her father again, not hurt anyone. She looked at the stone in her hand, its spiral glowing faintly in the firelight. If the song brings rain, we have to try, she said. We can't keep running. Zubri hesitated, then nodded. He began to hum, low and deep, the forbidden song filling the cave. Lami joined him, her voice trembling but strong, the notes weaving together like threads in a basket. The stone grew warmer, its hum louder, and the air seemed to shimmer. Outside, the shouts stopped, replaced by a low rumble in the sky. Lami's heart lifted. Was it working? But then a spear clattered against the cave's entrance, and a voice shouted, Lami, come out or we burn the hills. Lami stopped singing, fear choking her. The hunters were close, their torches lighting up the vines. Zubri grabbed her arm, pulling her deeper into the cave. There's another way out, he whispered. But if we sing again, they'll find us. Lami's mind raced. The village needed rain, but they hated her. The stone could save them, but it could also doom her. She looked at Zubri, his eyes steady despite the danger. What do we do? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. The rumble in the sky grew louder, and the ground shook beneath her feet. Something was coming, rain, spirits, or something worse. Lami clutched the stone, her father's voice echoing in her mind. Sing with courage. She had to decide, run and hide, or sing and face whatever came next. Lami's heart pounded as the hunters' shouts echoed outside the cave, their torchlight flickering through the vines like angry spirits. She crouched beside Zubri, the carved stone bird clutched in her hand, its spiral mark warm against her skin. The forbidden song still hummed in her chest, begging to be sung, but the spear that had clattered at the cave's mouth kept her silent. The village hunters, men she'd known her whole life, like her uncle Vusi and her cousin Themba, were out there, calling her name, calling her a curse. The air in the cave was thick with moss and fear, and the distant rumble in the sky felt like a warning. Lami looked at Zubri, his massive frame tense, his eyes scanning the darkness for the other way out. We can't stay here, he whispered, his voice low like the earth itself. They'll burn the cave to get us. Lami's wrapper, stained with dirt and torn at the hem, stuck to her legs as she stood. Her mother's beaded bracelet hung loose on her wrist, a reminder of the home she'd lost. She thought of Thandi, her mother, alone in their hut, probably praying to the ancestors for Lami's safety. The guilt was heavy. She'd only wanted to feel her father's spirit through the song, not bring trouble to the village. But the stone in her hand, the rain caller, felt like her only hope. If it could bring rain, it could save the village from drought. If it didn't, she and Zubri might pay with their lives. Zubri moved to the back of the cave, pushing aside a curtain of roots to reveal a narrow tunnel. "This leads to the river," he said. "We can hide there." Lami hesitated, glancing at the glowing vines where the hunters' torches danced. "What about the song?" she asked. "You said it calls rain. We could prove them wrong." Zubary's face tightened, his hide vest creaking as he turned to her. "Not now," he said. "They're too angry. They won't listen." Lami wanted to argue, but another shout, closer this time, cut her off. "Lami, show yourself." It was Vusi, his voice sharp with betrayal. She swallowed hard, tucking the stone into her wrapper, and followed Zubary into the tunnel. The tunnel was dark and damp, the walls slick with water that dripped like tears. Lami's bare feet slipped on the smooth stones, and she grabbed Zubary's arm to steady herself. His skin was warm, rough from years in the hills, and she wondered how he'd survived so long alone. "Why didn't you leave?" she asked as they moved deeper, the hunters' voices fading. "You could have gone far away, found another village." Zubary didn't look back. "This is my home," he said. "Even if they hate me, it's mine." The tunnel opened to a small clearing by the river, its water low and sluggish under the moonlight. Reeds lined the banks, their tips swaying in the breeze. Lami's throat ached with thirst, and she knelt to scoop water into her hands. The gourd Zubary had given her lost in the cave. The water was cool, tasting of earth, and she splashed some on her face, washing away the dust. Zubary stood watch, his eyes on the hills. "They'll find the tunnel soon," he said. "We need to move." But Lami wasn't ready. She pulled out the stone bird, its shell eyes glinting. "Tell me the truth," she said, her voice firm despite the fear in her chest. "What's the song for? Why's it forbidden?" Zubary sighed, sitting on a flat rock by the river. His hands, big as Lami's head, rested on his knees. He looked tired, older than she'd realized, like the years of banishment had carved lines into his face. "The song's not a curse," he said. "It's a gift from the ancestors, meant to call rain when the land is dry. My father taught it to me before he died. He was a diviner like your father was a singer. But when the drought came, the village needed someone to blame. They said my father's song angered the spirits, that my sighs was proof of a curse. They banished me, burned his relics, and forbade the song." He pointed to the stone in Lami's hand. "That's one of his relics. It holds the song's power." Lami stared at the stone, her fingers tracing the spiral. She remembered her father, Sifo, singing at the harvest festival, his voice lifting the whole village. He'd never mentioned a raincaller, but he'd always said music could touch the ancestors. "Why didn't you use it?" she asked. "You could have brought rain, shown them they were wrong." Zubary's eyes darkened. "I tried once, sang it alone in the hills. The rain came, but so did lightning. It struck the chief's hut. They said I called it to kill them." Lami's stomach twisted. The village's fear wasn't just superstition. It was rooted in something real. But she couldn't believe Zubary was cursed. He'd been kind to her, shared his food, taught her the song that made her feel her father again. She opened her mouth to speak, but a rustle in the reeds stopped her. Zubary stood, pulling her behind a tree. Footsteps crunched closer, and torchlight flickered on the water. "They're here," he whispered. Lami peeked through the leaves. Vusi led the hunters, his spear raised, his beaded necklace glinting. Themba was with him, younger but fierce, his eyes scanning the clearing. "Lami," Vusi called, "we know you're with the giant. Come out or we'll drag you back." Lami's heart raced. She wanted to shout that she wasn't a traitor, that the song could save them, but fear kept her quiet. Zubary's hand tightened on her shoulder. "Stay low," he said. "I'll lead them away." Before she could protest, Zubary stepped into the clearing, his massive form lit by the torches. The hunters froze, their spears trembling. "Leave her be," Zubary said, his voice calm but strong. "She's done nothing wrong." Vusi spat on the ground, a gesture to ward off evil. "You've cursed us, giant," he said, "and now you've corrupted Sifo's daughter. Where is she?" Zubary didn't answer, just took a step forward, drawing their eyes. Lami's chest tightened. He was giving her a chance to escape, but she couldn't leave him. She gripped the stone, its warmth spreading through her hand. The sky rumbled again, louder now, and she felt the song rising in her throat. If she sang, the hunters would find her. If she didn't, the village might starve. She thought of her mother, of the wilting maize fields, of her father's voice telling her to be brave. She stepped out from the tree, her wrapper catching on a branch, and faced the hunters. "Lami!" Themba shouted, his spear lowering slightly. Vusi's eyes narrowed. "You've chosen the curse over your people," he said. Lami shook her head, holding up the stone. "This isn't a curse," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "It's a rain caller. The song can save us." The hunters murmured, some stepping back, others gripping their spears tighter. Vusi laughed, a harsh sound. "You sound like him," he said, pointing at Zuberi. "You'll bring lightning, not rain." Before Lami could argue, a crack of thunder shook the ground, and a flash of lightning lit the sky. The hunters shouted, dropping to their knees, their torches hissing in the sudden wind. Lami's heart leapt. Was it the song? But she hadn't sung yet. Zuberi grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the river. "Run," he said. "The storm's coming." The hunters scrambled, some chasing them, others fleeing back to the hills. Lami ran, the stone clutched tight, her feet splashing in the shallow water. They reached a cluster of boulders by the river, hiding in their shadow. The sky was alive now, clouds swirling, lightning flashing. Lami's breath came in gasps. "Did we do this?" she asked. Zuberi shook his head. "The stone's awake," he said. "It's calling the rain, with or without the song." Lami looked at the stone, its spiral glowing brighter. She felt the song inside her, stronger than ever, but the hunters' shouts were close. If she sang now, they'd catch her. If she didn't, the storm might destroy everything. She looked at Zuberi, his face lit by lightning. "We have to finish it," she said. "For the village." Zuberi nodded, his eyes steady. "Together," he said. They began to hum, soft at first, the forbidden song weaving through the storm. The stone burned in Lami's hand, and the sky answered with a roar. But the hunters were closing in, their spears gleaming, and Lami knew this was their last chance. Lami's voice trembled as she hummed the forbidden song, her throat tight with fear and hope. Beside her, Zuberi's deep voice joined in, steady like the river's heartbeat, their notes weaving together in the shadow of the boulders. The carved stone bird in her hand burned, its spiral glowing like a star, and the sky roared in answer, lightning cracking so close the air smelled of fire. The hunters were near, their shouts cutting through the storm, their spears glinting in the flashes of light. Lami's ochre-dyed wrapper was soaked, clinging to her legs, and her mother's beaded bracelet dug into her wrist. She knew this was their last chance, to prove the song wasn't a curse, to save the village from drought, to show they weren't monsters. The song grew louder, its rhythm matching the pulse in Lami's chest. She remembered her father, Sifo, his voice lifting the village during harvest dances, his laughter filling their hut. She'd sung with Zuberi to feel him again, but now it was more. She sang for her mother, Thandi, for the wilting maize fields, for the children who cried from hunger. The stone vibrated, its hum blending with their voices, and the clouds seemed to twist above, heavy with promise. Zuberi's eyes met hers, steady despite the danger. "Keep going," he said, his words barely audible over the wind. "It's working." But the hunters were closing in. Vusi's voice rang out, sharp and angry. "Lami, stop this madness." She saw him through the rain, his beaded necklace swinging, his spear raised. Themba was beside him, younger but fierce, his eyes wide with fear. The other men fanned out, their torches hissing in the downpour. Lami's heart sank. They wouldn't listen, not with the storm raging, not with years of fear clouding their hearts. She wanted to stop, to run, but the song wouldn't let her. It felt alive, pulling her forward like a river. A drop of rain hit her cheek, then another. She gasped, her voice faltering. Zuberi grabbed her hand, his palm rough and warm. "Don't stop," he said. They sang louder, the notes rising over the thunder. The rain fell harder, a curtain of water that blurred the hunters' forms. The stone glowed brighter, its light cutting through the storm, and the ground shook as if the ancestors themselves were listening. Lami's fear melted into something else. Courage, like her father's, like the girl she wanted to be. The hunters stopped, their spears lowering, their faces lit by the stone's glow. Vusi shouted something, but the rain drowned his words. Themba dropped his torch, the flame dying in a puddle. Lami saw their fear, but also their wonder, as the rain soaked their hide vests and raffia belts. The river beside them swelled, its sluggish flow turning strong, rushing over the reeds. The drought was breaking, right before their eyes, and Lami's voice soared, carrying the song to its end. As the last note faded, the stone's glow dimmed, and the rain softened to a steady patter. Lami's chest heaved, her legs weak. Zuberi stood tall, his eyes on the hunters. No one moved. The silence was heavier than the storm, broken only by the river's roar. Vusi stepped forward, his spear still in hand but low. "What have you done?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Lami held up the stone, her hand steady despite her racing heart. "We called the rain," she said. "The song was never a curse. It's a gift." The hunters murmured, some stepping back, others staring at the sky. Themba's eyes were wide, like he saw Lami for the first time. "The river's full," he said, almost to himself. "The fields will grow." Vusi's face tightened, his grip on the spear firm. "You defied the elders," he said. "You brought the giants' evil here." But his words lacked strength, and Lami saw doubt in his eyes. Zuberi spoke, his voice calm but deep, like the earth after rain. "I was a boy when you banished me," he said. "I carried no curse, only my father's song. You blamed me for the drought, but it was fear that dried the land." He pointed to the stone in Lami's hand. "This is a raincaller, made by my father, a diviner who loved this village. You burned his relics, but this one survived." Lami found it, and she had the courage to sing. The hunters shifted, their faces a mix of shame and awe. Lami stepped forward, the rain cool on her skin. "I sang for my father," she said. "For my mother. For all of you. The ancestors gave us this song to help, not harm." She looked at Vusi, her uncle, who'd taught her to weave reeds as a child. "You can keep hating us, or you can let the rain save us." A long moment passed, the rain falling softly now, the river singing its own song. Vusi lowered his spear, his shoulders sagging. "Take them to the village," he said, his voice heavy. "The elders will decide." Themba hesitated, then offered Lami his hand, but she shook her head, standing close to Zuberi. The hunters formed a circle around them, their spears down but ready, and led them back through the hills. The village was awake when they arrived, the reed huts glowing with firelight. Women and children stood outside, their wrappers and beaded necklaces wet from the rain, their faces lit with hope. Thandi ran forward, pushing past the hunters, and pulled Lami into her arms. "My child," she whispered, her voice breaking. Lami hugged her tight, tears mixing with the rain. "I'm sorry, Mama," she said. Thandi shook her head, her hands cupping Lami's face. "You brought the rain." The elders waited in the center of the village, their carved staffs planted in the mud. Baba Mthunzi, his gray braids adorned with cowrie shells, stepped forward, his eyes sharp but tired. The crowd grew quiet, the only sound the patter of rain and the lowing of cattle in the kraal. Lami held the stone tightly, Zuberi at her side, his presence like a shield. She felt the weight of the village's eyes, some angry, some grateful, all waiting. "You defied us," Baba Mthunzi said, his voice cutting through the rain. "You sang the forbidden song, brought the giant among us. Why?" Lami took a deep breath, her father's courage in her heart. "Because the song isn't a curse," she said. "It's a raincaller, a gift from the ancestors." Zuberi wasn't cursed either. He was protecting the song, protecting us. She held up the stone, its spiral faint but clear. We sang to save the village, and the rain came. The crowd gasped, some touching their beads, others whispering prayers. Baba Mthunzi's eyes narrowed, but he looked at the river, now flowing strong, and the fields, already greener in the dawn light. The ancestors spared us, he said slowly. But your actions broke tradition. Lami's heart sank, but Zubri spoke, his voice steady. Tradition blinded you, he said. You feared what you didn't understand. Lami questioned it, and the land lives again. Thandi stepped forward, her voice firm. My daughter is no traitor. She's Sipho's child with his heart. Punish her, and you punish the rain. The crowd murmured, nodding, and Baba Mthunzi raised his hand for silence. He looked at Lami, then Zubri, then the stone. The ancestors have spoken, he said. The rain is their answer. Lami, your banishment is lifted. Zubri, you may return. The village cheered, women ululating, men drumming their staffs. Lami's knees buckled, and Thandi caught her, laughing through tears. Zubri stood still, his eyes wet, like he couldn't believe the words. Themba approached, head bowed. I was wrong, he said. Forgive me. Lami nodded, her heart full. The rain fell gently now, a blessing, not a storm. That night, the village danced, their fires bright, their voices rising in song. Not the forbidden one, but one of thanks. Lami sat by her mother, the stone bird safe in their hut, a relic honored again. Zubri joined the dance, his steps slow but strong, welcomed at last. Lami watched, her bracelet warm on her wrist, her father's spirit close. She'd questioned tradition, faced fear, and found truth. The village would never be the same, and neither would she. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and turn on your notification for more. See you soon.